This is a video I never thought I'd have to make. I am but the latest casualty in a really fast-growing epidemic that there just seems to be no cure for. I unfortunately got added to the list of female athletes who have torn their ACL playing a contact or pivoting or cutting sport. Now that I am just about 5 months out of surgery, I thought it would be time to go through all the physical activity things I got to do for what my surgeon called the first quarter of ACL rehab, which he said was the first 3 months. If you've torn your ACL, or you're also in rehab or recovery, or if you're intending to get surgery, you haven't gotten surgery yet, and you just kind of want a timeline of what to expect at different points in your rehab, this video is for you. So keep in mind that I actually had an isolated ACL. That was the only ligament involved, thank God. It was what my surgeon called a femoral avulsion, meaning it ripped clean off of my femur.
Why not?
But it was still kind of intact and in one piece, which I have been told only happens in 10 to 20% of ACL injuries. So basically the rarest of the rare things all happened in my injury, which maybe has made my recovery look a lot different than like your typical ACL recovery. All of that happened in the split second of my injury, which made for like a really stressful surgery day, which is a video for another time because surgery day was so atrocious. So this is going to be my physical activity level and exercises that I was doing for the first month of prehab. Don't skip out on prehab up until my 3-month checkup, which was about 12 weeks out of surgery. The mental health atrocity of what you go through during this rehab, I think deserves to have its own spotlight. So that's going to be another video for another time. So let's get into it. Prehab. I had about 4 weeks from the date of my injury to the date of my surgery. So I was basically doing everything that I still could. And here's me in the stupid brace that the ER gave me. Basically just doing everything that my mobility still allowed me to do, working on maintaining as much leg strength as I still could. This is super important to preserve your strength because during your surgery and like after, your leg muscles go to sleep and you have to fight like hell to wake them back up. So I did lots of body weight squats, working on keeping strength and sort of muscle memory and familiarity with things that were strengthening my glutes and my hamstrings to support my knee later on. I was really pleased with myself that I was still able to do a pistol squat on my good side. I was doing most upper body workouts with like most of my normality. I got to train with a really awesome personal trainer who led me in a modified workout while I could still push myself with my strength. Day 1 out of surgery to week 1 honestly is now kind of a blur, probably because I was on like an insane amount of drugs. Day 1 post-op, I remember going to PT the next day out of surgery. Day 1, they just unraveled my bandages and looked at my wounds. They measured my flexion and extension, tried to get me to lift my leg. I was able to get to 75 degrees flexion, which I was told was really good for a 1-day post-op. They let me go on the stationary bike for the first time. They told me not to pedal, just to like kind of rock my feet back and forth. I was so dizzy from all the drugs. I was just miserable. It was around day 3 post-op. Very gingerly took off the gauze, unraveled the bandages, and I saw the bruises on my leg, but it wasn't really that bad. I was weight bearing pretty early. I dropped the first crutch between day 8 and 10, which is when I also got my first rotation on the bike, was day 8. In Chinese culture, I'm half Chinese, 8 is the lucky number, so I almost thought that was like a little bit poetic. Basically, all we did in this period of time was just trying to get your quad to wake up and trying to get your muscles to fire. I was in PT 3 times a week for the first 2 weeks, and then they moved me to just twice a week for the remaining weeks. I'm still going twice a week right now. Week 1 to 2, I was walking with one crutch, just relying on the strength of my one good leg, learning how to shift and balance my weight in between both feet. I really struggled with learning how to pivot. I was introducing myself to starting to walk a few steps at a time with the brace, but without the crutches. I was doing standing calf raises with support. I also had my 2-week checkup. I went back to going to the gym, going to the weight room at about a week and a half, so maybe like 10 days post-op. As you could tell, I was absolutely thrilled because there really wasn't a lot I could do. This was also the time that I decided to take myself off of the drugs because I was sick of the nausea. I was sick of the dizziness. I didn't want to be trying to lift if I was still dizzy. All I could really do were like inverted rows on the Smith machine, unilateral upper body work if I was like holding on to something, a lot of core work. I was told that of this recovery, the first 6 weeks are the hardest, and of those 6 weeks, the first 2 weeks are the hardest. And looking back, I can definitely say that that's true, and I'm really glad that that's behind me now. Week 3, this was the week where I wanted to cry tears of relief because I was finally starting to feel better. Walking got a tiny bit better day by day. My gait, I felt like, was getting better little by little. I could still do, thank God, a supported pistol squat on my non-operated side. This was the week where I had to get really creative with doing single leg work, even through all of my limitations. I was feeling better because this is when they started to unlock my brace little by little. Got to sit and stand and walk with it unlocked a little bit. I was cleared to do body weight squats to depth with just the angle allowed by the angle of the brace. This was the week I started to practice driving. Finally, after about a month, I could bend my knee to tie my shoes. My brace got unlocked to 60 and 70 degrees that week. The swelling died down a little. Week 4 to 5, I was getting more comfortable with walking without the crutch. I was starting to drive little short drives around my neighborhood. My wounds had all closed up. This is when at PT they had me do step ups onto a box for the first time with my surgical side, and I was just really devastated and horrified at how difficult it was. It was just frustrating to not trust my body. My brace got unlocked to 80 degrees this week. Walking got a little better. Week 5 to 6, they started to introduce modified body weight lunges. The doctor cleared me to drive. At my 6-week checkup, I got fitted for a custom DonJoy knee brace. I was walking more confidently without the immobilizer brace. At PT that week, we got to try body weight squats without the brace, B stance RDL without the brace. Week 6 to 7, I dropped the other crutch. My gait was starting to get a little bit better. I was walking farther, like distance-wise, without getting as fatigued. I did more uneven surfaces like ramps and stairs. Going upstairs was so much better. I went to a Dia de Muertos celebration. I was walking all around this big art museum. I walked around like a majority of the museum and like the outside patio area too. My brace got unlocked to 100 degrees that week. I remember challenging myself on purpose that week. I went to this conference and one of the rooms was up like on the 3rd floor. And everyone asked me if I wanted to take the elevator. I was like, I don't need a damn elevator. So I walked up 3 flights of stairs. Maybe a little ambitious, but challenging myself was kind of the only way I got to really feel like myself. PT measured my flexion and extension again. I got to 130 degrees flexion and 0 degrees extension. Doing lots of rehab on my own at home helped a lot. I was sitting crisscross at 7 weeks. I started leg pressing on my own again at the gym. I stuck to the seated leg press. I got cleared to do hip thrusts. Week 8 to 9 was when I finally started to like regain just like a smidgen of normality. I went to my first concert post-surgery, one of the most special nights of my life. It was around week 8 that I started easing back into heavy benching again. My upper body workouts were slowly easing back into what they looked like prior to injury, with the amount of weight I was lifting and with the exercises I was doing. Walking was getting better. My new brace came in. Notice anything different about me? New brace, who dis? I was so excited. Week 9 to 10, we did an eternal amount of step ups, but this was the week that I started doing step downs from the box, which was petrifying. They gave me a pause with BFR, so it was my first week without the BFR cuff, which was like a huge relief. I started doing kettlebell squats without the depth to a box as far as my mobility would allow me to go. They introduced hurdles to me. I don't know if that's like a metaphor, but I started to walk over hurdles. And then once I got the hang of it, they had me walk over the hurdles with a 15-pound kettlebell. I started doing quad extensions using a resistance band, body weight, single leg RDLs. It was at this point, just at the start of week 9, where I officially was cleared to do the Stairmaster for the first time. Week 10 to 11, we started doing standing heel sides laterally, front, side, and then back, the bane of my existence, but I know that they're helpful. I was squatting with TRX straps to get my depth a little bit better, bodyweight lunges with TRX straps. This week I started pedaling faster on the stationary bike. We started to introduce some small, like fractional movements that mimic parts of jogging. Walking up and down stairs started to get a tiny bit better. That was the week I got cleared to do a seated leg curl machine at the gym. I did more bodyweight squats without the brace, heel slides until I threw up. This was the week where they had me try kneeling for the first time, and ouch, dude. I think you can tell from my face how I felt about it. It was like all the scars and trauma from the surgery and injury came back into my knee. It was like, spoiler alert if you haven't seen this, it was like the part in the first X-Men 2000 where Wolverine tries to save Rogue and she has like absorption powers, so he like touches her face in hopes that she will absorb his healing powers and heal herself. But when he does that, all the wounds that he got in that last hour of fighting came back. That happened, but in my knee. Week 11 to 12, kneeling was still terrible. Biking got a whole lot faster. It was at this week we started implementing small forward hops on my operated side, more introduction to movements that will lead me to returning to jog and returning to run. It was at this week where leg pressing on the seated leg press finally felt like a little bit less unsteady. And then I had my 3-month follow-up in which my doctor said that my muscle and muscle mass and definition is starting to come back a little bit. Thank God. He also said that the worst part is over. I know I titled this video like first quarter. That's because he told me to look at this recovery, it's 12 months, but to look at it as like a football game. I've made it past the first quarter, told me to try to not get too discouraged too easily because I'm done with the worst part. And there's a whole lot more game to play. Like I said, I am just about at 5 months right now, which means I've almost made it to halftime. So maybe I'll see you at halftime.